I'm sure by now you guys know that
Wait, did we really just high-five a Boston movie when it's about child abuse?
Yes, we did.
Oh,
you know why? Because it's from Boston. Ultimately, I'm sure you guys know our affection for the Boston movies because we are filming out of southern New Hampshire, New England.
We're about 40 minutes away. It's a beautiful place.
Spotlight was it was a very good movie. It definitely was not my favorite movie of the year. I liked many movies better than Spotlight. I recognize its quality. I think Michael Keaton did great. Mark Ruffalo apparently did well. I have a personal thing where, for some reason that I can't identify, I just don't like watching him on screen.
I don't either.
There is something about his voice and his face that I just don't like watching. I just don't know what it is, but I'm like, ugh.
The whole movie, whenever he's not talking, he's just kind of got a look on his face where he's like...
Yeah, and his voice, it's like... Oh, the priests are here.
Mark Ruffalo on love.
I can't really explain it. I just don't like him. There's
no
some
Brad
actors.
Pitt.
No,
Okay.
He's absolutely not. But I recognize the film's quality. I think it tackled a very important subject matter. The church's sanction of molestation of children. That is a very tough subject, a very important subject that I think people should know about, and it's part of history, so it's very important. But the movie was good, but it was very dry, very slow paced, very dry, not as much emotion as other nominated pictures had. I mean, it was very professional characters. I didn't see the range that you would see in Room, or you would see in even Revenant, when his child is killed. You don't have extreme emotion. You have, prolonged, parts of emotion.
I would disagree with that. But let's get started right from the beginning. First off, I think this movie was great. I think one of the biggest hindrances to this film, in the sense of getting, maybe either Mark Ruffalo or Michael Keaton additional awards outside of Best Picture, was the fact that there was so many good actors doing a great job.
Well, that is true.
You've got Rachel McAdams, does a great job. You got Mark Ruffalo, who, as much as I don't like him either, he did do a good job with that movie. You got Michael Keaton. You got John Slattery, the guy from Mad Men.
Ray Donovan.
I don't know which guy that is.
That's the character name of he does a show called Ray Donovan.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Then
awesome.
you got Liev
Schreiber. That's Ray Donovan.
Fuck you.
All right.
Either way, so you've got a great cast. Not very many movies have 6 top bill actors all being major players in the movie. I think that might have even hurt them, in the sense that you have so many people doing top level acting that it's hard to distinguish one or two from the herd.
To be completely honest, I think Michael Keaton and Mark Ruffalo were really the two biggest players in the movie. I love Rachel McAdams. I thought her True Detective performance was amazing. In my opinion, the best performance she's given on screen. I didn't think she blew me away in Spotlight. She was there, she was important, but she was not coming off as interesting as a character as Keaton was and as Ruffalo was.
I would even go so far as to say that even John Slate's role should have been looked at possibly for a nomination, not necessarily an award, because when you think about it, he's a supporting actor.
Yeah.
His role is not so much crucial to the overall plot line, but as he keeps digging in with them throughout the story to figure out what's going on, where are we at this, you start to see the stress and the gravity of the situation weighing on him. And then they keep saying, as a reoccurring theme, this information was already sent to you guys. You guys should have done this years ago. And it kind of paints that picture like he's the one who possibly stuffed it under, because he's getting so worn from this situation.
He did a great job. I agree.
And then at the end it falls on Michael Keaton, which, another great theme of the movie, because they spend that whole movie looking for who's to point the finger at.
Yeah.
And then they find, everyone.
Yeah.
Including ourselves. And even with Michael Keaton's character, like he says, I'd just taken over the media department. I did not realize that I somehow snubbed this, but I did this.
Yeah.
We all played a part.
Yeah, it was a huge, and it really does hone in on the importance and the scope. The question is, was it better than The Revenant? Was it better than Room? Was it better than Hateful Eight? Was it better than all these other Best Picture nominations?
I personally felt it was. I mean, for me, it was just such a complete film.
I definitely recognize its quality. I think the acting was great, the story was important, but the characters just felt not as good as like someone like I felt that Brie Larson was vastly more interesting than anyone in Spotlight. I thought that The Revenant as a movie and as a scope was vastly more interesting. It kept me much more enthralled. Spotlight was like, okay, this is important, this is high quality, but I'm not pulled into this movie. You know, it just lacks the scope. It lacks the, you know, the kind of, you know how you get riled up, you get pumped up to like you really get into a movie. I just didn't get that with Spotlight.
You see, I thought Spotlight did a good job of driving that need for information subtly. Like,
Yeah.
going back to that, who might have been involved in pushing this under the rug with the Globe. That was a subplot that ends up not being what you think it's going to be,
Yeah.
but you're sitting there through the whole movie. What's going on? Who's doing it? Is somebody going to try and screw this up again?
I did like seeing the pushback from other parties who were like, wow, dude, I don't want to be taking on the church, you know, publicly.
Yeah.
You know, that's a risk. That is a big risk.
Yeah.
And the story is very interesting.
And for people who live outside of the Boston area and don't really know it, I mean, Boston is one of the few places in this world that, with people being able to move as frequently as they can nowadays and as easily as they can, that is still heavily Irish, heavily Catholic. It's still very much woven into the culture of that community, which is becoming more and more rare in today's modern day of being able to, you know, pick up your phone and schedule a flight and move on the drop of a dime for whatever reason.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely see the argument. I wasn't disheartened by it winning. I kind of expected that, you know, it was between that and The Revenant. And it didn't shock me because The Revenant did not have that amount of dynamic characters. You know, it was more two very interesting characters. Spotlight had a whole team of very interesting characters. And the emotion in Spotlight was much more subtle, you know, much more trauma. There was much more of society involved. So I can see it. I think it is justified.
Yeah, and I think Spotlight especially has a great attention to detail.
Yeah,
Like,
it's very authentic from what I've heard. It's done a good job at, you know,
It
being
is.
close to the actual way it happened.
And what I like about it, I mean, there's a lot, like going back to the whole Boston community thing, it depicts a part of Boston community that to people who interact with it, they realize that is there. But, I mean, everyone always depicts, you know, in movies, you know, the accent, the love of baseball, which they did bring up in Spotlight.
Yeah, they did go to a Red
Go
Sox
Sox.
game at least one time in the movie.
But, so, you know, they go over the typical Boston stereotypes, but then they start getting into the little subcultured, you know, the Catholicism, the what neighborhood you're from, and just how they hold these lower tiered values in the sense of how you see them from an outside picture, and how they really contribute to their day-to-day life.
I think my closing argument would be that Spotlight comes down to a very strong story, subject, and characters. And The Revenant is more complete, where it has high-level cinematography, high-level action, and it has good characters at the same time. So I think more is going on, more aspects of filmmaking are going on in The Revenant, but Spotlight is picking a couple parts of film and doing it almost perfectly. Like, it definitely doesn't have the cinematography that The Revenant has, or the action, obviously, but it does its characters and story so well. So, you know, what do you guys think about that? Do you think Spotlight should have won? Or do you think they should have gone with the globes, like the Revenant?
I would have liked to have seen, I would have liked them to tack on an extra 10, maybe 15 minutes to the back end of that movie.
Yeah.
And just show a little bit more of the result of their work. Because
Yeah, that would have been a good idea.
They come in, the phones are ringing off the hook. It's clear this is going somewhere. I think it would have done the movie justice, the storyline justice, and what actually happened in real life a little bit of justice if it showed just a little bit more of what was the culmination of that.
Yeah, I think that would have actually really improved it, because they did the cliched like text of what happened,
Yeah.
like at the end of the movie, like here are the churches and here are all the cities, which was awesome to see. It was so cool
I saw
to see.
from our
Yeah,
state on
yeah,
there.
yeah. It was cool to see how the whole country and world was affected by these people doing this task. But it would have been cool to actually see like a modern day 2015 2016 like depiction of the church.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let us know what you think.
But I'm saying it was to the point where it was too slow.
Okay.
To the point where you're now going from being not attached to heavily attached